Subscribers to NewOrleans.Football get access to the live taping of this show, the overtime segment that comes after, all of our news and analysis, an extra podcast every week, and so much more. Make sure you sign up today. It's $9 a month, but use the code NOF to save 20% on your first payment and get locked in today. NewOrleans.Football /subscribe. All right, welcome back to another episode of NewOrleans.Football presented by PJ's Coffee. We're coming to you from our studio on Veterans Memorial Boulevard, right next door to our neighbor, Matt Bowers. They have car dealerships all throughout the region. The same thing that you get at every single one is the great customer care and the great pricing, the car buying experience that you will probably enjoy because, you know, they do a great job selling cars. So make sure you go check them out today. All right, we got a lot of stuff to get into on today's show. We're going to talk about Fuaga at left tackle during rookie camp and what that means and so much more. Make sure you stick around right after this break. The New Orleans.Football show is proudly presented by PJ's Coffee. PJ's Coffee has some of the best drinks that you can find. They have locations all over the city. They have pastries and everything else you need to get your day started. So go check them out. This Father's Day, show your dad you appreciate his unique style with a Breitling watch from Friend & Company Fine Jewelers. Make sure you're ready for the day. Father's Day is June 16th. And if not, maybe you just want to treat yourself. Smash that presentation, nail that deal, achieve that goal. Get yourself a Breitling watch from Friend & Company Fine Jewelers. Friend & Company Fine Jewelers, 7713 Maple Street between Adams and Burdett, Uptown. 504-866-5433 or visit them at friendandcompany.com. Hard Hide Ponchatoula Strawberry Whiskey is an 86 proof blend of aged wheat bourbon, American light whiskey, and fresh Ponchatoula strawberries. Blended in New Orleans, it is not for the thin-skinned. Look for it in your favorite stores, bars, and restaurants. NewOrleans.Football is proud to be sponsored by Firehouse Subs. Make sure you check out their location on Veterans Boulevard. All right, let's get into the show. It's now time for the lead presented by Friend & Company Fine Jewelers, the official jewelers of the New Orleans Saints. Friend & Company Fine Jewelers is your home for Father's Day. So if you are in the market for a Breitling watch, make sure you go and check them out. Get your dad that special something. And while you're there, look for something for your lady. They got the fleur-de-lis earrings and necklace that you see on the screen. The earrings are priced at $1,100 and the necklace is $1,350. Either way, tell them that NOF sent you.
All right, lead topic. Do the Saints know their right from their left tackle? Saturday, we got our first chance to see real football. Even though it's just the rookies, it was still a chance to be out there, you know, put our feet in the mud and see what was happening. But one thing that really stood out is that first-round pick, Taliese Fuaga, was playing at left tackle when he played at right his entire time there in college. So a lot of people had a lot of reactions, but what do we think about Tally playing at left?
I don't know who should go first because I'm going to be the skeptic of the two. Obviously, I think it's fine. We see it all the time. We see, you know, the best tackles in the league. Penei Sewell has played right and left. Tristan Wirfs moved to left last year. But even Tristan Wirfs, I found this article. He had to hire a team psychologist to work, a sports psychologist to work with him. And he said he was having breakdowns about switching. He said he couldn't sit there with the thoughts anymore. He felt like he was setting himself up for failure. He was in a really rough spot mentally. He was really nervous. He went on and he had a great season at left tackle. We see guys do it all the time. I don't see why bother. I don't see why bother. I understand left tackle is still slightly more important than right tackle. If he makes a smooth transition to left tackle, great. Put him at the more important position. But I just figure this guy is the centerpiece of this offensive line they're rebuilding. Why do it at all? I am a little skeptical.
Well, I mean, I think the obvious answer is that you weren't your best player at left tackle. He's probably going to be their best offensive lineman. Yeah. If he can do it, you get him at the position where you have the most value, and he's the best at it. You can't, like, if you got to go out there and you have a good guy and you can have a mid guy and you can say, and you got a right-handed quarterback. Mm-hmm. Do you want the good guy at left and the mid guy at right? Absolutely, every single time, because if the pressure's coming at Carr can do something to protect himself. If you got a mid guy behind him who can't block and Derek's getting lit up from the back every single time, that's affecting every single throw he has, every single time he drops back. He's speeding himself up when he doesn't need to speed himself up. So I think if you can go out there and you can get Fuaga on the left side, great. But here's the thing. You can start this right now, and there's what, 9 OTA practices,
Yes, of course.
Mhm.
3
This
minicamp
is the obvious
practices,
part of this.
3 rookie
yes.
camp practices. So you have 15 practices to evaluate it. And at the end of it, if it doesn't work, just flip it back.
Yeah.
And it's really no harm done. These 15 practices, like the people that just want to hate Dennis Allen are going to be like, oh my
Right.
God, you set him back.
Right.
No, you
right.
didn't. It's 15 practices. He's still learning the language of the offense. He's still getting to know the playbook, and he can just go back to playing right tackle at the end of it. But I don't think you should make the, you know, and then the second factor of this is Trevor Penning. And I don't think, you know, the argument that I keep seeing on Twitter is like, well, then it's going to be harder for Penning. Who gives a damn?
Yeah.
Like Trevor Penning, if you are making any
Yeah.
plans around Trevor Penning at this point, like I think that's the bigger mistake. I think the bigger mistake here would be, well, let's not try anything. Like I think any job that anybody has, like if you can look at us and you're like, well, let me see if this guy can handle it. Like I think that's a good thing to do before
Right.
you start looking for the outside. So I think it's fine. I think you try it out, you see if you can do it, and if you can't, you just flip it back. And it's not the end of the world. I think the more insane thing would be just like, well, let's not find out what he can do at all.
No, I get it. And I was, like I said, I almost wanted to go second because I was just trying to be the voice of caution that like it kind of surprised me, but there is no harm whatsoever in doing this during rookie minicamp. And Clint Kubiak and Dennis Allen both said, we're going to reevaluate after rookie minicamp. They will probably give him several weeks on the job and they will reevaluate after that. But they are going to ultimately do where he feels most comfortable. They're not going to set this guy up to fail. He's an incredibly valuable resource and he means a lot to them. And everyone thought he could do it. He thought he could do it on draft day. Jim Nagy, the guy who scouted him for the Senior Bowl and then had him all week, said, I see a left tackle in him. And like I said, this is not a Dennis Allen thing. It's not a Clint Kubiak thing. This is what teams do all around the league. Like, even though players admit they struggle with it, teams try it all the time. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I mean, Andrews Pete obviously comes to mind here. He simply could not get over the hump, could not move to right tackle. And after they tried him for a while, they moved him to left guard, and he ended up making a successful transition there. But yeah, of course, you try to find out. And that's what May football is all about, is trying to find out. I guess I believe in left tackle. I mean, the blind side is an expression for a good reason. You're protecting the quarterback's backside. But I just think, I mean, we've been taught so many times, especially in the Ryan Ramczyk era of Saints football, that the top pass rushers in the league go over to the other side so often too that I don't think it's that important. So I guess my final takeaway would be, if it sets him back at all, if he's uncomfortable doing it at all, I think the Saints will move him back to right tackle. I think they should, but I absolutely do see no harm in finding out if he's the kind of guy who could do both and either.
Yeah, I definitely agree with both of y'all. You know, muscle memory has him at right tackle, but if you're allowed to have the versatility to learn how to play left and right, you're indisposable at that
it's
point.
only better, yeah.
Yeah, look, my thing on Ramczyk would be just they had a high value left tackle the whole entire time
Right.
he was here.
They might have moved him too.
He never had a path to left tackle, and then by the time they were shaky at left tackle, his knee was going, and you want your faster guy on the left side. The other thing is that like I think look, I mean, there's no doubt about it that being better on the left side is better for a right-handed quarterback, especially one that doesn't handle pressure well already. That's already rattled by it. So I think you want to do that. I will say this though, like if you go back, like I thought the knock on Fuaga for me when I watched him is I personally thought he was right tackle only. Like he just doesn't have the length. He just kind of plays like plug and play at that spot. I thought he could maybe move inside. I didn't necessarily see left, but I could absolutely be wrong. I don't think enough of my opinion to sit here and be like, what they're doing is insane. So if he has a chance to do it, I think you gotta find it out. So look, the other part of this too that I think has value to it, he could play left tackle this year, and it doesn't mean he has to be your left tackle for the next 25 years. Like,
right.
I think if you next 25 years, the next 5 years, if for the next 10 years or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But if you put him there, you can move him back to right next year. If that's his better position, you get a different left tackle. And now if that left tackle ever gets hurt, you can take your right tackle and move him over to the left and cover the most important position on your offensive line if you need to. He has that flexibility then. I just think that I just don't really see a lot of downsides, and I don't think it sets him back really at all. Like, whatever your best five is, I think you have to do the things you have to do to get those guys out there. And if that is him on the left side and Uli Udo on the right, I feel better about it. If you're telling me Uli Udo has to start my perception of it, it changes. It changes whether he's on the left side or the right side, because if you put him on the right and Derek can put his eyes on him, then he sees the guy beating him, you can get rid of the ball. Like, it just changes my perception of the strength of their offensive line. And if you can protect Derek on that left side, I think that things are a lot better. But we have no idea if he's going to be able to do this or not.
Yeah, and you mentioned Trevor Penning, and I completely agree with you. You make no decisions based. You don't say, "No, we got to put Fuaga on the right side because Penning's got the left side." You do not do that at all. But what do you think this means for Trevor Penning? Do you think Trevor Penning? Do you expect during OTAs to see some Trevor Penning on the right side? Do you think this means we're only going to see Trevor Penning with the second team? Do you think this means Fuaga and Penning will trade every practice like we've seen in the past when guys are competing for a job? What does this lead you to guess we're going to see in OTAs?
Like I said this a couple of weeks ago, even. Like, I think they're just going to cross-train all those guys and just figure out how they fit in. And it could be Landon Young at guard. It could be Landon Young at tackle. It could be Ulioto on either side. It could be Penning at either tackle spot. I don't see Penning in the cards at guard. Now I don't. I don't see it. I will say, like, in the discourse as a whole about this team that's taking place in public, I find it tremendously interesting that, like, the idea of moving Trevor Penning to the inside is like an easy, smart thing to do, but changing a guy from left to right at the same position is the most outrageous thing that anybody could ever do. I find that kind of interesting, the way that conversation's playing out. But I think they're just going to try everybody at a bunch of different positions and see how they fit. And I'm okay with that because I don't believe they have answers. Like, so I think trying to find them, like, there is a process to that. And, you know, one last point on the flip, like, I think if you're comparing this to Zach Baum moving from pass rusher to linebacker, off the ball linebacker, you're making the wrong comparison.
No, you've seen that on Twitter, I assume.
Yeah,
like, I mean, there are a lot of panicked takes on this. Right tackle to left tackle is a much more common. And actually, finish your point, but
Ryan Ramczyk switched sides.
Ryan Ramczyk played left tackle in college. His entire college career, Ryan Ramczyk was a left tackle. He played right tackle in the NFL. Jari Evans was a left tackle in college. He played right guard in the NFL. So we think of the Andrus Peat couldn't do it example, but there's a lot of good examples in Saints history too.
You spoke on it earlier, and you kind of alluded to it in this last answer, but you talk about putting the best five on the field. The Saints added veteran offensive lineman Lucas Patrick in the mix over the weekend. He's a starter. He has some experience. So with him in the mix now, who are the best five that you think will be on the field?
I don't think it's Lucas Patrick right now. I think he's probably more of a depth player, and just kind of doing like a cursory scouting of him. I think he's probably better as a depth player, but at least you have somebody with experience on the team now if something happens, or if the floor falls out, like, you set a floor at least with him. I feel like we did this recently, and my answer is probably going to change. I'm trying to remember who I said, but I mean, I think it's Fuaga at one of the spots. I think Nick Saldiveri, McCoy, Cesar Ruiz, and probably Ulioto. I think it's probably the last one.
Yeah. So first of all, I feel good about the signing of Lucas Patrick. Now, I don't know how good I feel about Lucas Patrick himself as much as I do the idea of him, but it's just a reminder. And Nick did this study last week. Everybody check it out on the website if you haven't. About how offensive line play is probably a little overrated in people's minds around the league. There's a lot of bad offensive line play everywhere. But the Green Bay Packers, who I think everyone agrees is a pretty good team, started Lucas Patrick for 15 games at right guard in 2020. They started him for 13 games in 2021 at center. The Bears last year started him for 15 games, mostly at center. So what is that? 30, 43, 48 starts over the last 4 years. I mean, we keep worrying about how they lost Andrus Peat and they lost James Hurst. I imagine Lucas Patrick can play at an Andrus Peat, James Hurst level. I imagine Oli Udoh can play at that level. And if they can't, I imagine there's 5 more Lucas Patricks out there. We've talked about how Dalton Risner is still out there, and he started for a long time. Last year, it was Max Garcia, a guy that they brought in, and they plugged him in, and he started some games. There are experienced veterans out there. So just because the Saints are going to give Penning a chance to start on this team, and they're going to give Nick Saldiveri a chance to start on this team, there are guys like this that could come and kind of stop the bleeding if needed. And frankly, I wouldn't be surprised at all. I think this becomes a battle at left guard between Lucas Patrick and Nick Saldiveri. I think the battle at right tackle will be Oli Udoh versus Landon Young. I think the battle at left tackle will
Trevor
probably
Penning.
be and I'm saying more what I'm predicting the two deep to be, Trevor Penning and Taliese Fuaga working out at left tackle. So they've got options all around, none that make you feel totally secure about this team, but enough guys that could do it. And this helps a little bit. I think this helps people sleep at night a little bit. I mean, look at the graphic we have up on the screen if you're watching on YouTube. That's a lot of snaps played in the NFL at 3 different positions.
Yeah, that experience is invaluable. But, going back to the rookies and Saturday in minicamp, who else stood out? We got a chance to see Rattler for the first time, see him in a, competitive sense. What stood out about him?
I thought he looked good. I mean, man, that man throws a good football. Like it's just a lot of velocity. I mean, the spiral is as tight as any spiral you're going to see. The arm strength is incredible. I mean, I think there's probably just isolate everything, every decision, all that stuff. Isolate it. Like he's probably got a top half of the league arm. I mean, I think his arm talent is that good. I talked to someone who said that he has one of the best arms he's ever scouted. So I mean, I don't even think that's an outrageous statement. Like it is,
Right.
it is an industry.
That's not
held.
hyperbole with this guy. I mean, the reason we've written and talked about him so much is we are talking about one of the top recruits in the last 25 years, and not even just recruits. Like after his freshman year at Oklahoma, he was like the Heisman frontrunner because he was so good his freshman year.
He's good. He made good decisions throughout that practice. I don't think he really pushed the ball at all. There was like one throw like 15 yards down the field to close it. It was kind of like a skinny post that he hit. It was a really nice throw to kind of close it out. But he was smart. He got the ball out where it needed to go. His only incompletion was probably a little bit of a misplaced ball, but it got broken up by the defender. I mean, I thought he looked great. I really do. I mean, it's rookie camp against, a lot of guys that are going to be, doing something other than going to the league. But I mean, he looked good out there. And, I don't know that you can really take anything from the positives necessarily from rookie camp on a quarterback, but I think you can take stuff from the negatives. And there really weren't a whole lot of negatives.
Right.
So I think that was a really good first debut for us with him. He's small.
Talk about that real quick.
He's small. Like he looks small. Like he does. Not like frail. He's not thin.
He's muscular.
Yeah. He's short.
Stature.
Though. Like,
yeah.
He does. He
Yeah.
looks short out there. Not like, there's other guys that look shorter out there than him, but like he's definitely not like, he looks at his listed height. I just put it that way.
We're gonna find out what kind of timing and anticipation he has. I mean, it doesn't. Your arm strength doesn't matter unless you use it properly. But just initial impressions from scouting him on tape and watching him now once in person on the practice field. Describe the difference between his strong arm and Jameis Winston's strong arm, because Jameis Winston flicked his wrist and it went 70 yards down the field. We haven't seen Spencer Rattler do that in Saints camp. We've seen him do that in games and stuff like that. But I think immediately people are like, okay, strong arm, but what are you going to do with it? But like similar, different? What's your impression of arm strength or arm talent as it comes to those two guys?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's similar. I mean, strong arm is strong arm, and Jameis had one of the better, still has one of the better arms in the NFL. I say this cautiously and respectfully.
Yeah.
And we've seen one practice, but like looking at the college tape, watching Jameis, I'm not going to die on this take. Like I'm just saying it. I'm not going to die on this take, but I think the short field accuracy is maybe a little bit better with Rattler just coming out of the gates, like immediately. And that was Jameis's biggest area. Like, but we got to see a lot more.
Yes.
I think we saw
Sorry.
12
You see him
passes.
under pressure, under real pressure.
Yeah, not thrown against, there were people out on that field that are going to be at the lumberyard next week. Like it's just kind of the way it is. Some of them are going to be selling insurance. Like it's just the truth of the situation. Some of them will be in Canada.
Full,
you know what I mean? Like, a lot of them aren't going to be. 90% of the guys we saw out there aren't NFL football players. So it's incredibly hard to kind of judge that. You can probably throw with a lot of confidence over the middle when you have really no worry about the guy being able to make a play. But I do think in the college tape, like you saw a lot of that. And that was one of the things that I really kind of liked about him was that shorter area of the field stuff. So, but yeah, I mean, look, Jameis has shown that he can stick in the league. He's been a starter. He's achieved a lot. Like Rattler has a lot to do to even. We're talking about a number 1 pick versus a 5th round pick. So, I mean, there's a lot that Rattler has to do to get on his level to have the career that Jameis has had. But I do think that maybe that short area stuff, I think there's a chance for Spencer to be maybe a little bit better at.
Right. Well, I mean, that was sort of Jameis Winston's fatal flaw. I mean, there's no secret in saying that. It doesn't mean it's something he could never correct if he would have had more time to work the way Sean Payton was working with him before he tore his ACL. But that is something that undermined Jameis Winston, was working in the middle of the field. I talked to, for the story I did on Spencer Rattler a couple weeks ago, I talked to his longtime throwing coach. He's been working with him since he was 12 years old. And I was asking about what makes him special as a quarterback. And the thing he highlighted first and foremost was his touch. And he said, just wait till you can see the way he can drop a ball in over a defender with touch, layering the ball when it needs to be layered, throwing with real soft touch. He can make all the throws, but when you see him lay the ball up with touch, that's the thing. So I'm curious to watch that. I'm curious to watch. I don't know that we've seen deep ball and touch. I mean, that's something Drew Brees did at his peak, and even then he was maximizing his arm strength. So I'm really curious to see if that plays out on the practice field this summer.
Yep. Going back to one of the topics we had last week, talking about the quarterbacks and, you know, how they rank up. Jared Goff, he actually just got a 4-year extension of $212 million. So
$170 million guaranteed.
Yeah, he's in another tier.
What's 212 divided by 4 real quick? 54?
53. So Burrow is at 55, Goff at 53 million, Herbert 52.5, Lamar Jackson 52 million, Jalen Hurts at 51 million. You know, listeners of the show know that I'm pro Goff. Yeah. I'm not pro Goff as the second highest paid quarterback in the NFL.
Look, we did this thing. Who's the best value at quarterback? And I think we all picked Goff, but one of the asterisks we had on his name was this. It's like, we talk about Derek Carr all the time. You can like Derek Carr, you can dislike Derek Carr, but even if you rank Derek Carr where we ranked him, 18th, 20th, 22nd, wherever he is in that range, getting $30 to $33 million a year means you're the 18th, 20th best quarterback right now. If you're in the top 10, you're at 50. If you're 12th or whatever Kirk Cousins is, you're 45 million. So quarterbacks cost a lot of money, man.
That's that win the Super Bowl or bust money right there. That's what that is.
Any other observations from Rookie Minicamp? We were watching Spencer Rattler a lot, obviously. Fuaga as much as we could. Obviously, they're not rushing. They're not wearing pads. Who else stood out to you?
I mean, Jalen Ford was out with the sports hernia surgery, so didn't really get a look at him. I thought Bub Memes looked pretty good.
Yeah, looked the part.
You know who I really liked? And we'll see how he looks against the pros. And sometimes you get that poppiness from guys that, you know the playbook, know it's a new playbook, so I got to take that part out. But like, know how to play in the NFL and all that stuff. Like, they come out there, they're a little bit more confident. But I thought Michael Jacobson looked pretty good out there. He's a converted basketball player. He was on the practice squad all last year, developmental. I thought he looked. If you told me to pick a tight end out of the group, and I think there was like 3 or 4 of them out there,
including Dallin Holker, who everyone's excited about.
If I knew nothing about any of them and I'm just watching blank, and again, like, it's so unfair to judge people right now, even in OTAs and minicamp, because like people that flash are usually people that know how to be pros, and then you get these like UDFAs and stuff that everything kind of slows down and clicks at some point in August, and it's like, oh, like that's the guy that's going to make the team. So I'm not staking a claim on anyone right now, but if you told me to pick a tight end out of that group, like, I'm taking Jacobson far and away. Like, I thought he looked that much better than everybody else out there.
Opportunity is absolutely there.
Yeah.
I mean, he's almost penciled into the roster right now if they're not adding anyone. I mean, I guess him versus Dallin Holker could be a battle for like a 3rd or 4th tight end position. And it's funny though. I mean, this is the one thing I've known I've been guilty of for however many years I've been doing this, and I do it anyway. When you go out there and you watch them in shorts and no one's tackling anyone and no one's hitting anyone, the pass catchers and sometimes the cornerbacks are what stands out to you. And the Charlotte receiver, Jalen Jones, we both remarked that we liked a couple of things he did. But it's hard to rate offensive linemen or front 7 defenders in practices like this. I liked the linebacker Isaiah Major that they got from Florida A&M on a few plays. But I also think the middle linebackers look better when they're not in pads, and then when they're actually trying to run against them and tackle people is when you really get to see how much field they get to cover. But I agree on Bub Means. There wasn't a ton. We didn't get to see Kool-Aid McKinstry as expected. We might not see him at all until July. Maybe he'll make a little cameo appearance during mini camp. We didn't get to see enough of the punter or the kicker to say if we think they're going to push. So not a ton more. Only signed one guy, which I think is kind of which was the veteran offensive lineman that we just talked about.
I think there's probably more coming.
Yeah, I wonder if there'll be more, because usually they do end up with 3 guys out of a weekend like this.
I know you said he kind of got corrected a few times, but I thought the running back, Michael Chris Ike, moved better than a lot of the
Mike
people.
Ike.
What's his name? Mike.
No, you got it, but that's what they kept calling him, Mike Ike.
Yeah, I think he moved better than a lot of the people
Sure.
out there. Like if you were just looking for an athlete, like
Fluid,
he looked
yeah.
like someone that was just a little bit. It was like, oh, who's he? Like it's not, that's usually my test during these things. It's just kind of like, oh, who's he? Like who makes me notice? He made me notice a few times, but if he was messing stuff up, but I don't know. Maybe he moved well enough that it's like we'll see what he's got. But he was somebody that did stand out to me a little bit.
Yeah, I really like Bub Means and then his interactions with his new wide receiver coach. And, you know, to get our reactions on the wide receiver coach and the new offensive coordinator, stick around because we're going to hit a quick break. And then when we get back, we'll talk about the new coaches. And then we'll hit our Martin's question of the day. Catch you next.
Total Maintenance has set the standard for professional air conditioning, heating, and electric services for more than 4 decades. Total Maintenance is skilled and experienced in the installation, replacement, and service of air conditioners, furnaces, heat pumps, ductless models, air quality products, duct cleaning and sealing, and so much more. Total Maintenance protects their residential and commercial clients from disruption no matter the time of day or night. When you call Total Maintenance for service, expect quality workmanship and superior results. Visit NOLA-AC.com or call 504-814-3300 if you're in New Orleans, or 225-480-1000 for Baton Rouge.
Are you tired of renting and ready to own your dream home? Contact Jefferson Financial Federal Credit Union, your trusted source for home loans. Our competitive rates and flexible terms can help make your home ownership dreams a reality. If you're a first-time home buyer or looking to refinance, our experienced lenders are here to help. Our online application process allows you to apply on your schedule. It's quick, easy, and convenient. Visit us online at jeffersonfinancial.org to learn more. Federally insured by NCUA, Equal Housing Lender.
Martin Wine and Spirits is home to a selection of hand-picked barrel select bourbon, whiskeys, and much, much more. They are family owned and operated since 1946 and specialize in wine, spirits, gourmet food, gift baskets, catering, and tasting events. They have many locations, so they're never too far away. You can check them out in Metairie, New Orleans, Mandeville, and Baton Rouge, or if it's more convenient, you can always shop online. Whether you're a wine novice or a seasoned collector, you'll enjoy the Martin Wine and Spirit experience.
Welcome back to our studio on Veterans Memorial Boulevard. It's now time for our next segment presented by Hard High Ponchatoula Strawberry Whiskey. Along at Rookie Minicamp, we got a chance to see the new offensive coaching staff for the first time, and we got a chance to talk to Clint Kubiak after practice. What are your first thoughts on that?
Clint is a man of few words. You know, I don't think he's someone that's necessarily gonna open up the playbook for anybody, but I like the stuff that he did say. I like, the one answer I really like the most, and I saw it kind of get played as like a non-answer, like on social media a little bit, but I thought the answer that was best to me was, I asked him like, what do you wanted the identity of the offense to be? And he said he's gonna let the players decide it. I really like that. It's not that he's not gonna try to force a philosophy on anyone. He's gonna take the information he has and then kind of try to construct a plan around it and make sure he's playing to the strengths of his roster and everything. And he said he doesn't know what the identity can be yet because he hasn't seen it yet. So I thought that was something that was good from him. I thought the coaches had a lot of energy. Janoko, the quarterback's coach, was out playing defense and stuff, and just kind of watching how he was interacting with the quarterbacks. I thought that was kind of fascinating. The way they ran the practice was completely different than anything we've seen before, because they've just been doing the same exact thing for like 15 years. And it's the offensive linemen are here, the running backs are here, the tight ends are here. They're going to go through the routes going this direction from here, and then they're going to move up to here. And it's just kind of like you knew exactly what they were going to do, how they were going to do it, how they were going to stretch, where they were going to be lined up. And then you go out there and it's like, whoa, like, this is different. And, that was just kind of cool. Like, it was just kind of cool to have a different energy to it. The wide receivers coach has an incredible amount of energy.
Yeah.
Very
Williams.
vocal.
Yeah.
So those are kind of the few things that stood out to me.
Derek Foster was really vocal too, the running backs coach. That's why I heard 29 getting corrected a lot.
Yeah.
Great. Look, one of the big things that came up was shortening the play calls. I still heard lengthy play calls. I mean, we're hearing West Coast. We're hearing identifying where the X is going to go. We're hearing identifying where the halfback's going to go. But I thought it was interesting that so many people, including Dennis Allen, including your conversation with Michael Jacobs, had said it's shorter than it used to be. What's interesting about the long play calls is a long play call is hard on the quarterback and easy on everyone else. A long play call means you're telling everybody what they're doing on the play, and the quarterback needs to master it. You know, if you can do a short play call and you're asking everyone to understand the offense and maybe get what was they were saying, you know, you can do things quicker, you can move quicker. We've heard that so many times. We've heard get rid of the ball quickly. We've heard, you know, pass it quick passing game, and you think that's going to benefit Derek Carr. And now we're adding terminology to yet another thing that could just make things more fluid and functional. Do you? I mean, how much do you make of the talk of that in the first weekend?
Excuse me. Well, the first thing, like just as far as like the play call goes, excuse me.
Sorry.
So yeah, I mean, like a Peyton one would be like gun flex, right? Stack, dragon, smoke, kill, turbo sucker, right? And like I was hearing stuff that was just like dolphin 19 whiz.
Yeah.
Like so, some of them were a little bit longer, but some of them were just like they were calling a formation and a concept, and you kind of had to know where to go based off of that.
Right.
So some of them are still like a little bit wordy, but like the Peyton stuff was kind of like.
Yeah. We're going to spell it out for
yeah,
everyone.
and the thing that would do is like, so it would put a lot of stress on the quarterback, but then if you're a wide receiver, you can go out there and, okay, I know the formation and I know what I'm supposed to do. You don't really have to like know as much because it's on the quarterback to kind of say it all. But like, if you're trying to get in and out of the huddle and everything, that stuff can be complicated. And if you have a quarterback who basically built the offense for 10, 15 years, it's kind of easy to do that. But then if you're someone just kind of coming into this and it's just like, whoa, would you say I got to say all that? Like, why? Like, you got to hear it and repeat it. Yeah.
It destroyed some younger quarterbacks.
So it's tough. So I like that this is a little bit easier. And I think it's going to be a little bit easier on the offense. And you know, one of the things Jacobson said, and I went to him because he's the only holdover from last year to this year. He just said, like, for me, it means I have to know the playbook better. Like, I can't go out there and I can't just like BS my way through anything, because if they call a concept or if they call it one route, I got to know what I'm doing off of that, as opposed to like just kind of having everything laid out for me to where I can just go out in the huddle, hear it, and okay, this is a formation, here's the route, this is what I got to do.
Yeah, it's really interesting. My favorite thing that Kubiak said, because we spent about 6-7 minutes with him trying to get him to open up about his offense, and he would try to misdirect, and he'd try to be, this isn't about me. He said that a few times. This is going to be about the players. It's not going to be about me. But I kind of set him up because I kind of knew what I thought I was going to hear, where I said, you know, everybody says, you know, this is part of the Kubiak, his own father, and Mike Shanahan principles of the offense. And I said that are obviously based on the run game and the play action passing game. And I mean, are those core principles that you still believe in, even though everyone has adapted it into their own thing so much? And he said, absolutely. I mean, he said, that's the foundation of everything we do. He goes, and he said, and if we're going to have a good play action run game, we're going to have a good run game. And so it's our job to teach the run game. And it's just, we've heard Dennis Allen say that 4 or 5 times about why he wanted this to be their offense. And Clint Kubiak unapologetically said, yes, we're going to be a team that runs the ball and runs play action off our running game. And that might be a basic fundamentals of football, but guess what? We haven't seen it around here in a long time.
Yeah,
so if
absolutely.
they get that right, and they brought in assistants who worked for Mike Shanahan and Gary Kubiak to run it. I mean, they are unapologetically trying to go with the base principles of an offense that has worked in different formats for a long time.
Yeah, I know a NFL playbook is only a fraction of a college playbook, but do you think because of the transfer portal and players just having to move around to different systems year to year, that they'll be able to retain this information quicker?
I don't know.
Or is it still
it's a very fair question.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really fair question, and it really depends how much you put on guys. I mean, it is a really interesting concept, how much you put on the quarterback and how much you don't. I mean, it's not something we had to think about covering the Saints for a long time, because they had Drew Brees for a long time, and even when they replaced Drew Brees, they replaced him with veterans for a long time. We haven't seen the Saints sort of, you know, how do you make C.J. Stroud work as a rookie? How much do you simplify for him? How much do you put on other people or whatever? But yeah, we haven't seen an offense work without Drew Brees as the quarterback. So
Right.
figuring out the right balance and how much you're asking players to do, it's probably the balance that coaches like this have to always figure out, and it probably often depends how much you think you can put on the plate of the players that you have on your roster.
Mm-hmm.
Saints just signed a defensive tackle named Kendall Vickers. Looks like he's more of a like a 3-tech DT. Trying to get some info on him right now. Came in with the Raiders. Spent his first 3 seasons there. Last year was with Buffalo. 2
Looks like
sacks
he
in his career.
actually undrafted with the Steelers in 2018, went to Canada before he finally hit in the NFL with the Raiders 20 through 22.
Yeah, so they got just kind of seems like a depth guy, probably a little bit more. But yeah, more of a DT. That's kind of a need, I think, for the team. I don't know that he's someone that you put at the top of the depth chart, but kind of somebody that can come in, compete, and just make sure they're getting their best competition.
Bills and Cardinals mostly practice squad the last couple of years, but played some real snaps with the Raiders. I mean, this is kind of in line with the other veteran signings they've been doing recently. Not a headliner, but an experienced guy that they must have had high grades on from previous stints on their ready list.
Yep, continuing to add depth to that line. Mike, I wanted to bring this up earlier. Antoine Winfield, the safety for the Bucs,
Mm-hmm.
he signed a 4-year, $84.1 million contract extension. So he's going to be around for a while. What does that mean, like, for the market in terms of having to pay?
I mean, yeah, I saw somebody spin that and saying, hey, look, the safety market is back. I don't know. He might be an exception. We've seen a lot of safeties not get paid this offseason, but he's a special player. I mean, look, did he end up falling into the second round of the draft, I think, if I remember right, because there's a little bit of a safety stigma, and he's been one of the best players from that entire draft class. So he's sort of been an exception, and this is bad news for the Saints, because him combined with the linebacker play they had there, although they no longer have Devin White there, really made things hard on the Saints running backs and the Saints short area passing game, and that's a guy they're going to have to contend with for a while. But I don't know that this all of a sudden means all safeties are going to get paid.
Yeah, he was a second rounder, pick 45 in 2020. All right, now it's time for the Martin's question of the day. Martin's is home to a wide selection of hand-picked barrel select bourbon, whiskeys, and more. Martin's, so much more than just wine. Who Dat from Greece asks, with the benefit of hindsight, was letting Terron Armstead go the Saints' biggest mistake in the post-Drew Brees era?
It's an interesting question. I mean, I think in the short term, you could kind of make a little bit of that argument, because it led to him leaving, and then you end up drafting Penning kind of based on need. So it led you into that a little bit. But on the flip side, Armstead has only played, he played 13 games his first year in Miami, only 10 last year. So you're still in that. You'd be paying somebody that's a little bit iffy health-wise, given where they're at. But I think that you can make the argument for it, just given that it's their biggest need, and they made a pick to try to replace him that could end up, to this point, is giving them nothing. So it's a complicated question.
Yeah.
But I think it's definitely something someone could definitely make an argument that it's been one of the more damaging things that has happened to the team. Because if you keep Armstead, you probably backstop him with like James Hurst. James Hurst is retiring. You'd probably go out and get like a cheaper player to kind of replace him. You're probably still in the market for Fuaga, but I think you probably feel a lot better about your team if you're getting something out of that draft pick from that class, or maybe they just don't make that trade at all. So it's something that prevents what I think ended up becoming a bigger mistake.
That's really funny, because I think I settled on as my answer to the question. Well, the answer to my question is not drafting Pat Mahomes, which is kind of cheap. Every team should have drafted Mahomes, but we know how close they really came. And they ended up with Marshawn Lattimore, which is probably their best player acquisition of the last however many years, or one of the top ones. So, but still, not drafting Patrick Mahomes when one little trade up would have got it done. But I was thinking the Penning trade is a real candidate for this. And when you tie those together, if you re-sign Terron Armstead, as you said, maybe you don't draft Trevor Penning. When you combine those two together, I think it's the S to this question. What I was going to say though is, how many more games do you think they win the last 2 years if they get Armstead's 23 games over the last 2 years? They went 7-10, 9-8. Do they win the division both years? Do they get one more win? Yeah, I think their offensive line play was probably the worst part of the team in both years.
Yeah, they might have won a game. They might have won another game, or like maybe the group's better overall. Look, there's a cascading effect too with Armstead in that he's a great teacher. Like people go out to Duke Manyweather's camp, and like Terron's one of the guys that goes around and is kind of like a camp counselor, so to speak, like an extension of that coaching. So maybe just other players are better because he's around too. So yeah, I think they probably could win another game somewhere along the lines. To touch on your point, I just got to say it, man. Like every time now this Mahomes thing comes up, it comes with the retelling of this story. And the retelling of the story is that the Saints went there on a stealth plane that was untrackable on the cover of night, that nobody knew they were out there. And then like it was like, well, that's why Atlanta, they did their thing with drafting the quarterback, and it was so quiet. And I'm sure Terry Fontenot did learn from it, but it wasn't because of this like super silent operation. Sean Payton took pictures that were on social media from their campus that led people like me and Mike to make calls to say, hey, is he out there working out Mahomes? And then people said, yes, he is. And then it gets reported. It was a loud thing. And they stopped, like, you took a picture. Like, the picture is why everybody knew. It wasn't like it leaked out. Like, no, there was photographic evidence that the staff was on their campus. And that's how we all knew that he was working them out.
Yeah, you did your job. You weren't like the feds or nothing like that. Had them.
Look, I mean, the
picture did the job. I didn't do anything.
And look, the Saints drafted quarterback 2 years earlier. It was Garrett Grayson, but I mean, like, they made no secret that they were in the business of scouting quarterbacks every year. They were scouting Jared Goff. They were working out. I mean, they were working out with first-round prospects all the time. Maybe nobody thought they were going to actually pull the trigger because Drew Brees was still about 37 years old. But yeah, like they weren't going to get him with secrecy.
I just hate how it gets retold that it was like this like stealth operation. It's like, no, it wasn't.
No, it wasn't. Yeah. But I did have other candidates for this. The thing about the only counter argument I would say to Terron is I think Terron would have made you a game better each of the last 2 years, and you might have won the division each of the last. Honestly, Terron might have made them good enough to get that one more win and win the division each of the last 2 years. I don't know if I can say that about Trey Hendrickson. Maybe you can make the same argument with Trey Hendrickson.
Trey's a good one. Trey's a good one.
Yeah, because the defensive end position has faded in the last couple of years, and he would have made it a lot better. And Trey Hendrickson's still a fairly young player, so I'd feel better about their future too, which almost makes him a candidate ahead of Terron. But I'm thinking a little bit more about how this roster's just gotten a lot older. I don't know how much having Terron Armstead on this team would make me feel better about where they are now and where they're going. So I lean more towards how much they paid to get those 2 first-round picks a couple years ago and using one of them on Penning, or using the 2 first-rounders on Marcus Davenport and having him not work out when instead you could have had 2 different players that are maybe building blocks for this team. I think missing on first-round picks and doubling up your resources to, trade, a first and a second for a guy or 2 firsts for a guy, and having them not hit is what has hurt this team the most, I think.
I don't even know what they would have done with that 19th pick. Like, part of me feels like they might have ended up like drafting Kenny Pickett there or something.
Well, no, here's what I think they would have done. So there's 2 different things. First of all, they had the 18th pick. So let's say they never make a trade at all. They have the 18th pick. So maybe they would have taken Penning anyway. But I think they would have traded up for Olave anyway. It might have been a little more expensive, but I mean, Olave is the guy they obviously wanted. They moved up from 16 to 11 to get Olave. I think they would have moved up from 18 to 11 to get Olave. And I'm just saying, don't have that be your only first-round pick. And then the next year, have the 10th pick in the draft. That ended up being Jalen Carter or whatever. I don't like that they spent so much money to get 2 first-round picks that year, and one of them was Penning.
And the thing is, again, they did that ahead of time, so it was they just wanted the picks. So
it's almost like a financial decision.
I almost don't like they might have still made the same trade. I have no idea what they were actually targeting at 19. I don't know if it was Penning. I don't know if it was someone else. I don't know if it was just hey, one of these players is going to be there and we don't care who it is. Like, we're making 2 picks this year. So they still might have made the same exact trade beforehand. Because, like, I don't know. I can't say for sure that it wasn't Penning specific, but it might have been.
Yeah.
It might have been.
Yeah. Well, for our live viewers, we appreciate y'all for being in here and stick around for overtime. And if you're not subscribed yet, what are you doing? Because Wednesday night, we'll be back right here only on NewOrleans.Football to give live reaction to the schedule release. Stick around for overtime. If not, catch you next time.